Welcome to Chop Chop Culinary Skills Training Video Series. I'm Therese Allen, author of The Flavor of Wisconsin for Kids.
And I'm Susan Peterman, seasoned nutrition consultant and retired director of school nutrition for Middleton School District.
In this video training series, we'll show you how to use Wisconsin-grown fruits and vegetables in your school meal programs. Serving these local foods to your students is a win-win for child nutrition and local farmers.
We are all searching for ways to serve fresher, more interesting menus for students. Wisconsin-grown vegetables and fruits look, smell, and taste appealing, and with a few helpful techniques can easily be added to your lunch line.
This short training will demonstrate simple skills and recipes to create delicious meals made with local products that your students will love to eat.
Chop chop, let's head to the kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen at Middleton Cross Plains Cromery Middle School. Today we're going to make and freeze ratatouille, a form of tomato vegetable sauce using Wisconsin-grown tomatoes and peppers. This process makes the most of a bountiful harvest season tomato and pepper, and it preserves them for your school meals well past autumn. Peak harvest time for tomatoes and peppers in Wisconsin is September. Fresh tomatoes and peppers have a short shelf life, but with the right treatment can be prepared and frozen as a useful base ingredient for soups, sauces, and even salads. Your students will notice the exceptional flavor when you source tomatoes and peppers locally and in peak season. Tomatoes and red peppers are an excellent way to meet the red-orange vegetable subgroup requirement. Tomatoes and peppers are high in vitamins A and C, which help establish healthy eyesight and bones and promote a strong immune system for your students. To start, preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And then, using the knife skills that we learned in the Leafy Greens video, we'll prepare the ratatouille. Today, we are using tomatoes and peppers, but you can use many other Wisconsin vegetables like zucchini and onions, even eggplant. First, we have a sharp chef's knife. We will slice our vegetable in half, putting the flat side down. And with tomatoes and peppers, we do have stems to remove and seeds. Then we are going to roughly chop these vegetables. And a rough chop is very different from a fine chop or a shred. We want chunks of vegetables for our very flavorful ratatouille. Here's our pepper. We'll repeat the process. We'll take the top off, cut it in half, very quickly, de-seed, and rough chop. The pieces do not need to be the same shape. However, they should be roughly the same size. First, we would prepare the sheet pan by spraying it to avoid the vegetables sticking. Liners are not recommended for roasting vegetables, as the vegetables stick to the paper and make cooling the vegetables much, much harder. So I'm going to place my chopped vegetables in a single layer on my sheet pan, like such. Look at all that beautiful Wisconsin color and great nutrition. The vegetables are then drizzled with oil following the recipe, and the oil simply helps enhance the roasting process. And basically, when we roast vegetables, we are bringing out the natural flavor of that vegetable. And then salt according to the recipe. This obviously enhances, again, the flavor of the vegetable and helps preserve color. And then just a little pepper. Now, those very easy steps, and we are ready to roast our vegetables. These will be placed in our oven for about 25 minutes. I suggest setting the timer for 15 minutes and lightly tossing the vegetables to make sure that they brown and heat evenly during the process. Here we have our cooked ratatouille. Look at the beautiful color from these cost-effective, nutritious, Wisconsin-grown vegetables. Take advantage of the abundance of these fresh ingredients during the harvest time of year. If you have sufficient freezer space, you can make large batches of this product and freeze it to use throughout the school year. Now we'll show you how to freeze the ratatouille for future use. Please follow all standard sanitation steps for cooling your product to ready it for the freezer. As with any process, start with clean hands. Your storage containers will depend on the size of your production operation. If you will use the ratatouille to make a spaghetti sauce, you may want to freeze it in large plastic containers. Most commercial recipes require about 3 gallons. However, if you'll be making pizza sauce for your homemade pizza, you may only need 1-gallon containers or plastic storage bags. Once the ratatouille is appropriately cooled, transfer it to the container, and you will note that we have slightly mashed our roasted vegetables to make this ratatouille sauce, which will be the base for pasta sauce. It'll be the base for our pizza sauce, for our homemade school pizzas. You're going to seal with the lid, mark with the date that you're freezing, and the date that it should be used by. These products should be used within 6 to 9 months for optimal nutrition, but may be used up to 1 year after preparation. When planning for your weekly production, take your ratatouille out of the freezer and thaw it in your cooler for at least 3 days before service. The weekend really works well for this. Products will have better quality if thawed slowly before use. Products reheated from frozen may be watery and change the consistency of your final products. Now you have a wonderful basic ratatouille that can be used immediately or saved for later. This product can be used in so many ways. You can serve it as is, or you can puree it into a sauce for pasta or pizza. Watch the Chop Chop video on winter squash to learn about pureeing. Then watch the Chop Chop video on whole grain pizza dough to learn more about how to use your pizza sauce with whole grains. Spread the ratatouille on lightly toasted rolls to make the all-time student favorite, Wisconsin cheese bread. You can also fold the ratatouille into casseroles. You can puree it into a soup base. And remember to take credit for the wonderful homemade dishes made with Wisconsin ingredients. Listed on your menu, use easily identifiable icons to show that they are local, and ask your students to come up and help with some clever marketing campaigns.
Did you know that a lot of locally grown nutritious fruits and vegetables don't look good enough to be sold in the grocery store? We call these cosmetically imperfect seconds. They're perfectly fresh and good to use in school meals and in any meals. They just look a little different than what you're used to.
Here's another good opportunity to use cosmetically imperfect vegetables. Oddly shaped, slightly marred, tomatoes and peppers can be quickly prepared and frozen for future use. Contact your local farm partners to see if they offer these products at lower price to help you incorporate more local products in season into your menu.
Wisconsin's farmers are an important part of the state's landscape, food system, and economy. By using locally grown fruits and vegetables, you're not only sourcing the freshest ingredients possible, but you're helping to directly support Wisconsin's farm families and businesses across the state. Now, let's meet a farmer and learn about a successful relationship with one of your school nutrition peers.
We're such a large farm that when we bring all the produce into the packing shed and we wash it all, we have a lot of either excess or, vegetables with slight imperfections that we're not going to put into our CSA boxes. And of course, the ones that are really imperfect, they go into the compost. But the ones that have slight imperfections that definitely someone can eat go into crates, and then we contact Mount Horeb, and they let us know how much of it they want.
I just train the staff of what we can and can't use, and then we also work with the farm on what we can and can't use, and we just, cut out the imperfections. We actually put most of it on a salad bar. I would say come September, most of our produce on the salad bar is from the farm, and then usually ends mid-October, so we've gotten kohlrabi, red peppers, things like that. When we get those weekly shipments, sometimes it will fill up our entire cooler and you can't walk in there, and they are just overwhelmed of how we're going to do this. But the local produce lasts a lot longer than what we're getting on a truck, and they realize the freshness and the importance of it. If something comes in, it might be a little more prep time, then we start prepping it a couple days earlier when we have a little bit more time. Then we put out signs that really promote the farm, that we send newsletters home to parents and things like that, and kids will come up and say, oh, we have a CSA share out there, we know Barb, or things like that. So that's really good to hear, and they are much more likely to eat that if they know who the farmer is.
It's been so well received in Mount Horeb. We get emails from parents who are also members of our farm. If we're at some kind of a community event in Mount Horeb, people walk up to us and they thank us, and they tell us thank you so much for, this food. Our CSA has benefited by getting Mount Horeb families as members because, we're making ourselves known. It's just a win-win. The parents are happy, we're happy. People just feel really good to know that, this one farm and this one school district is actually making a pretty big difference.
Welcome back to the kitchen at Middleton Cross Plains Cromery Middle School. A crunchy, vibrant salad is just the thing to get kids eating their veggies. Today we'll learn 3 different shredding techniques, then use them to make a simple coleslaw from Wisconsin-grown cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower. These vegetables are all members of the Brassica family, sometimes called cole crops. To prepare cabbage, peel off the first outer layers to get down to the small, dense head. For cauliflower, take off the thick green growth leaves, exposing the small, white, dense head. Then use a small knife to reduce the core. And then you have a head of cauliflower ready for preparation. For broccoli, trim small leaves and dried ends away. Take off the thick woody end. You can also use a vegetable peeler to remove the dense skin from the stalk. We'll start with a... Please welcome Jim Deegan, Director of the School District of Janesville School Nutrition Program. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm terrific, thank you.
With cabbage, we cut it directly in half. I always try to cut in going through the core, because when I go through the core, the knife blade won't move on me. Then I up and down, very thin slices, and I leave the core in until the very end, and then I'll pull the core out, I'll cut the core out with a little V shape. The reason I do that is the core holds everything together on the cabbage, so it isn't falling around in different directions on you.
A food processor is the most efficient way to shred broccoli stems. However, today Jim is going to also demonstrate a knife technique for cutting broccoli by hand.
With broccoli, I treat it the same way I do cabbage. You want to cut it lengthwise and then put the flat side down on your cutting board so that you can cut it up. That way it won't move around underneath your chef's knife.
If you are preparing a larger quantity of cabbage, consider using a small appliance to assist. A commercial tabletop food processor is an ideal labor-saving choice. These appliances come in a variety of sizes to fit every operation, and you can purchase blades separately to meet your needs. I am using a small commercial processor today. You first position the machine at working height on a solid surface for operational safety. set up using the blade recommended in your machine instructions. Today we're using a shredding blade. Make sure the machine chute is correctly installed to prevent spraying cabbage over the work surface. The vegetables can be prepared ahead of time, but must be destemmed and prepared as if you were hand shredding to ensure a quality end product. Cabbage should be cut in wedges dependent upon your machine size. This process takes only a few seconds once the vegetables are prepped. Over time, you'll get comfortable with the prep required to get consistent sized shreds. And you can see that although we prepared the cabbage in exactly the same way as hand shredding, it took very, very little time to do a larger volume ready for service. Shredding can be done ahead, but the vegetables will begin to lose quality through dehydration. Store in a tightly sealed plastic container in your cooler for no more than 2 days before serving. Another pre-preparation tip for you, do not salt any vegetable being held in storage. Salt will draw water from the vegetables and cause sogginess and overall quality loss. If you have a large capacity Robot-Coupe, consider using it to shred larger volumes. Follow the same steps to prepare the vegetables and machine for product. We will simply cut the cabbage into larger pieces as this machine will take much larger loads. Now we're ready to make a delicious, zippy Wisconsin slaw with our shredded vegetables and a simple dressing. First, let's take a minute to look at the difference between our machine shredded combination and hand shredded vegetables. You'll note that hand shredded vegetables are somewhat more irregular and larger than the machine shredding, depending on the blade that you choose for your use. Now we'll add our dressings and toss. We're working on 2 dressings today. The first is a sweet vinegar dressing that will make a zesty slaw to pique students' interest. The other dressing is a traditional creamy dressing with the addition of chipotle seasonings for an unusual twist. Both recipes are available on the Chop Chop webpage. In terms of preparation, you can prepare your vegetables up to 2 days in advance, as well as your salad dressings. The key is not to mix the two until right before service. This will avoid a soggy product. And here we go. You're mixing in just enough dressing to give a little flavor to the vegetables. It should be tossed as close to service time as possible. And there you have it, zippy Wisconsin coleslaw. This fresh tasting coleslaw can be served on a salad bar or as a veggie side dish in place of salad. Consider using it on an entree, like a fish taco or a sandwich wrap.
Wisconsin's farmers are an important part of the state's landscape, food system, and economy. By using locally grown fruits and vegetables, you're not only sourcing the freshest ingredients possible, but you're helping to directly support Wisconsin's farm families and businesses across the state. Now, let's meet a farmer and learn about a successful relationship with one of your school nutrition peers.
We at Amazing Grace Family Farm are extremely excited to produce produce for the school districts, to get local food to local students, local people. Really, it's something that drives us as a farm. I heard about a meeting that CISA was putting on for local farms purchasing their food and getting it into the school systems. We started growing broccoli because of that meeting.
We talked about what I serve on my menu, and we've got our red-orange component, we've got our leafy green component, and your beans and legumes component. We talked about growing grape or cherry tomatoes. Just the interaction and explaining what requirements I have, I think helps
Me because
nurture the relationship.
We've now got tomato plants in the ground that we're hoping to sell to you this fall, and we're maybe in the future going to do romaine lettuce.
And we've gone to fruit and vegetable bars. At the high school level, we offer all the different components every day.
Sure.
So that we always meet our requirements. For us, with the menu pattern, we have to offer foods to students. Mm-hmm. So in broccoli, kids like broccoli. Kids like tomatoes, kids eat carrots. We've gone through a lot more fruits and vegetables. And it's us offering a wide variety of choices. Kind of blessed. I have the superintendent, Dr. Karen Schulte. I'm fortunate. She trusts me to do the work, which is great. And we have conversations, and a kindergarten teacher told me, he said, well, those kids don't like those baby carrots. And I said, well, why? Well, their teeth are coming out. They can't bite them. And I'm sitting there looking, and I said, we can get carrots and turn them into sticks and make sure that we cut them skinny enough, small enough, so the kids can eat them. And when you don't have that connect, you miss a lot of those things. Sure. You'll just see them go to the trash instead of that.
Yeah. We are a small farm, and in this day and age, being a small farm is a hard life to live. But doing this is great. We have an opportunity to both help our community, get to know the people that we're serving produce to, and also make a living at it.
Welcome to the kitchen at Middleton Cross Plains Cromrie Middle School. Did you know you can bring out the sweetness of root vegetables through roasting? Today, we are going to do just that. Roast Wisconsin-grown potatoes, carrots, and sweet potatoes. Students are already familiar fans of these vegetables, so they're a good place to start if you've never used or cooked with local foods. We'll also work with creative seasonings for root veggies to add flavor to your dishes and increase student interest in your menus. We're going to start by preparing our pans for roasting. Preheat your oven to 425 degrees. This is the temperature that is generally used for most vegetable roasting. Line your sheet pans with foil or spray with vegetable spray. I recommend using the foil simply because this will decrease your cleanup time. Paper liners are not recommended for vegetable roasting. Next, we'll prepare our vegetables. Although we are working with potatoes, carrots, and sweet potatoes, this same process can be used with other root vegetables like beets, parsnips, and turnips, all of which are grown in Wisconsin and store well during the winter months. Make sure your vegetables are washed and somewhat dry. Welcome Barb Wara, School Nutrition Director from Fort Atkinson Schools. You can begin by peeling the vegetables, but it's not necessary here. Peeling vegetables depends on the skin. Some vegetable skins are thin, like this white potato, and will roast for added texture and flavor. Others may be tougher and more bitter. All young, fresh vegetables may be roasted with skin on. When cutting your vegetables, select shapes that appeal to students. Thick wedges and French fry shapes are obviously popular. For carrots, cut into 1 to 2 inch chunks and remove the ends. You'll want them all to be right about the same size so that they cook evenly. When using potatoes, make sure to cut these last to prevent discoloration from air exposure. You can also soak them in salt water until it's time to roast them, but if you go this route, dry them well before they're roasted. Follow the same process with the sweet potatoes. If the skins are thin and clean, you don't need to peel, and that means more nutrition for your students. Next, we're going to toss the veggies with oil and seasonings, but first, let's take a minute to talk about those seasonings. Root vegetables are delicious on their own, but we can also think of them as a blank canvas for flavor. The seasonings can be simple, like fresh herbs, rosemary, basil, parsley, or thyme from the school garden. Just mince and toss the herbs with the veggies when they come out of the oven. You can also use dry spices from the pantry. For student-approved flavors, try combinations like rosemary and thyme, cumin and paprika, or chili powder with oregano. Many low-sodium seasonings are pre-mixed, like Italian or Mexican, and are available from food distributors. You can also mix your own, like this simple schoolhouse seasoning blend with paprika, onion powder, cumin, coriander, salt, and garlic powder. You can even mix up a large batch of this seasoning to keep on hand anytime you need a dash of flavor. These seasoning mixes can help you reduce the salt in your school menus. Don't forget to encourage students to give feedback on the seasoning blends you use. Now we'll put it all together and get our veggies roasting. Our recipe today is a simple roasted root veggie recipe from the Holmen School District, and you can find it on the Chop Chop website. As always, start with freshly washed hands and first combine all of the veggies in a bowl. Add vegetable oil, or you could use a combination of oil like olive and vegetable. And then the seasonings. You can spice it up. Now, using your hands, mix the vegetables to distribute the oil and the seasonings evenly. Now that our veggies are tossed and evenly coated with oil and seasoning, we'll spread them out in a single layer on our prepared pans. As simple as this. Place the pans in a preheated 425-degree oven and roast for 15 minutes. At that point, toss them with a metal spatula and continue the roasting process until they are brown tipped and tender. This will take another 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how large the chunks are and how spread apart they may be on your baking pan. Watch carefully to prevent overcooking. The best way to know if they're done, of course, is to taste one. Our root vegetables are roasted. Let's take a look. These are perfect, tender, fragrant, and ready to serve. Try to avoid holding roasted potatoes in the steam table for too long. They will get soggy. These roasted vegetables are extremely versatile. They can be used as a vegetable side or as part of an entree. Leftovers can be added to grain salads or even soups. If you don't have time to process fresh product, consider some of the local frozen processed options that are available through our food distributor.
Did you know that a lot of locally grown nutritious fruits and vegetables don't look good enough to be sold in the grocery store? We call these cosmetically imperfect seconds. They're perfectly fresh and good to use in school meals and in any meals. They just look a little different than what you're used to.
Root vegetables can often be purchased as cosmetically imperfect seconds. Odd-looking veggies like these can cost much less than grade A product. Your ability to use this product allows more room in your food budget for other local foods.
Wisconsin's farmers are an important part of the state's landscape, food system, and economy. By using locally grown fruits and vegetables, you're not only sourcing the freshest ingredients possible, but you're helping to directly support Wisconsin's farm families and businesses across the state. Now, let's meet a farmer and learn about a successful relationship with one of your school nutrition peers.
Well, we have an organic vegetable farm, so we grow a really big assortment of a lot of different things, from early spring greens starting in March all the way to all of the array of vegetables that you would see at the farmers market during the summer, from tomatoes and carrots and beets and squash and broccoli.
I had done some potato tasting in Monona Grove, and I found that to be very interesting with the students. High Meadow Farms helped us when we were doing the red, white, and blue potato day. They had the blue potatoes, which aren't that common.
And everybody got to tour the farm, and a lot of times kids think that potatoes are hanging on the vine like an apple, and they're surprised to find that we have to dig into the dirt to find them. And the excitement in the potato field when we have our potato party and they're all going through is just a squeal of excitement, you know, just finding all the potatoes. And we don't see that kind of enthusiasm with the people that work here and pick them up out of the ground. So it's really great to have to see that excitement, and they just don't want to stop. They want to always dig another row. So we've got potatoes that are red inside and blue inside and yellow inside. So if you have that assortment and chopped up in a bowl, it's pretty exciting just to get that doesn't look like a regular potato. Even more exciting for them to cut them up themselves and put them in their own thing. So they're actually bring it from the ground, wash it up, put it in the grill. It's that whole process in one day of harvesting to table that really kind of opens a whole nother window to them.
So we try to look for the things that are really in season when we're doing a farm to school harvest item of the month. By the time we get back to school in August, a lot of the things have already hit their peak and we can't get them anymore. But the root vegetables we have a lot of availability here in Wisconsin late into the season. Carrots, I believe we can get up until March. So and potatoes pretty much year-round if it's been a good year for potatoes.
Carrots will actually get even sweeter when they're in storage. So we have carrots here in the wintertime that we send out, so they really get to have nice vegetables all year round, not just in the summertime. Working with different families who have not had that exposure, I'm just find out how little kids are aware of where the food comes from and what it looks like, and that there's a lot of different varieties of different things. You know, there's more than just a red tomato. There's a lot of different varieties that you can grow, and then a lot of different flavors, and they all have a little bit different nutritious value.
It's been a lot of fun working with them and teaching them those things.
Welcome to the kitchen at Middleton Cross Plains Cromrie Middle School. Today we're going to learn how to incorporate Wisconsin-grown winter squash into our menus. We'll demonstrate how to cook them, then mash and also puree squash. We'll also show you how to incorporate shredded squash so it will be visible and credible in your school nutrition recipes. We'll work in 2 stages with our squash. First, we need to cook the squash. As usual, we'll start with clean, washed hands. The squash should be washed under warm, running water to remove any field debris before preparation. Let's learn how to roast squash first. There are 2 ways to do this. Begin by heating your oven to 425 degrees. Squash can be cut in half. I recommend that squash be roasted whole. When we roast the squash whole, it's necessary to provide an escape for steam during cooking. Simply pierce the skin of the squash in the widest part and lay it on its side for cooking. Now we're ready for the preheated oven. And this baking process should take somewhere between 50 minutes to an hour. The squash will be soft and you'll be able to press it with your hot pad. Remove the squash from the oven and cool briefly. Now we're going to half the squash once you can handle it, and we'll use a sturdy spoon to scrape out the seeds and the membranes. Then scoop out the squash flesh and save it for the next step. You may also cool the squash using standard cooling techniques and store it in plastic containers in recipe size amounts. Squash can be frozen for up to 6 months. When it's time to use it, plan at least 2 days thawing time in the cooler for this wonderful economic Wisconsin food. From here, we'll make our mash and our puree. When the squash has cooled a bit, but is still warm, spoon it out of the skins and into a large bowl. Use a hand masher or mixer to mash like this. You can see that squash mashes very, very easily once it is done. Now for a simple side. Add butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and salt, and then a little pepper. Other additions that will add wonderful flavor include rosemary, sage, honey, or Wisconsin maple syrup. Any of these make a tasty and colorful side that meets the requirement for the red-orange vegetable subgroup. Winter squash mash can be made ahead and then reheated in the oven. This dish also keeps well in a steam table. Very similar to the mash technique is pureeing, which gives winter squash a very smooth texture. This is an immersion blender, and it works great for puree. If you have a small kitchen, you might want to use this home scale version. For larger operations, there is an institutional size, much larger, that will work better for you. The rotating blade is at the end of the wand, and there is an on and off button always on the top. To get a smooth puree, work the blender up and down throughout the mixture. Pureed squash can be used in recipes like harvest squash muffins or butter nutty mac and cheese. Try it as a base for pizza or pasta sauce or in a squash soup. We love squash, but it can be tricky to credit. Pureed winter squash only credits toward the vegetable meal pattern requirement when used as a soup base. But winter squash is so flexible. You can add visible shredded winter squash to your muffins, casseroles, and other recipes to allow your pureed squash to credit toward the red-orange vegetable subgroup. One more way to work with winter squash is to peel and cube it. Raw or roasted cubes can be frozen for later use. Cube squash can be mixed with other veggies used in soups, grain dishes, and even salads.
Did you know that a lot of locally grown nutritious fruits and vegetables don't look good enough to be sold in the grocery store? We call these cosmetically imperfect seconds. They're perfectly fresh and good to use in school meals and in any meals. They just look a little different than what you're used to.
Winter squash presents an excellent opportunity to use cosmetically imperfect seconds. Many commercially grown winter squash have minor imperfections, dings or notches in their skin, or funny shapes that prevent them from being sold in the grocery store. These cosmetic imperfections allow you to get local, sustainably grown squash at a better price. All you have to do is cut away the imperfections. If the flaws are in the skin, you don't have to do anything. Simply scoop out the flesh.
Wisconsin's farmers are an important part of the state's landscape, food system, and economy. By using locally grown fruits and vegetables, you're not only sourcing the freshest ingredients possible, but you're helping to directly support Wisconsin's farm families and businesses across the state. Now, let's meet a farmer and learn about a successful relationship with one of your school nutrition peers.
Locally grown squash, there's actually a tremendous amount of variety in the different squash that are grown, and as you can see some of them here. Many of them with different textures and different flavor profiles. And the nice thing about squash is that we do have summer squash, but in the fall is really when we get our winter squash, and they store so well, so there's availability, an extended availability, which allows you nice, fresh, locally grown product throughout and well into the first semester, maybe even into the second semester of school.
And we've also had locally grown product that has actually been frozen, and we've been able to bring that back in the months between January and April in either a cube product or a mashed product. Mm-hmm. For us, one of the biggest challenges is simply getting enough product of really any kind to feed all of the kids at one time. When we look at things like squash, we're probably looking at 500 or 600 pounds. When we look at things like cherry tomatoes, we're looking at 230 pounds. And that's why we rely sometimes on the frozen product, because we know that that's coming in, and then we can pull out of that frozen inventory. And like I said, that's local.
That's also where we've been able to help you at Apple Blossom. We grow, pick, pack, and distribute. We also aggregate, so we have other growers. I remember the Ratatouille project we did with you, 330 pounds of eggplant. That is a lot of eggplants. So, first is to take a look at what our fields look like, and then it's starting to reach out to our other growers that are all local growers. And by golly, we were able to put together 330 pounds of fresh eggplant for 1,200 pounds of Ratatouille.
We ended up making 1,250 pounds of finished product, so that meant really that we had to start with closer to 2,500 pounds of raw product between the eggplant, the tomatoes, the peppers. 95% of that was actually local and fresh. So
it's a fun challenge. I love those
it's
challenges.
A fun challenge.
You sometimes throw at us, and you need how much? All right.
And this year our goal is to actually make more.
Oh, great.
So, yeah,
okay.
so we'll be looking for a few more eggplants this year.
Okay, very good. I'll better get on the phone.
That's right.
And we appreciate the support. It's important to the economy, and obviously growers. I mean, growers are taking that money, and there's a multiplying effect in the community. But for us, we're just passionate about kids in general and education, and I think that nobody really would argue that a healthy kid is a smarter kid and they do better in the classroom. And so we just love the fact that we can bring good tasting stuff. It's locally grown, it's healthy, and we believe that impact on kids from a nutritional perspective really does help them, improves quality of life, and certainly helps them in school as well.
Welcome to the kitchen at Middleton Cross Plains Cromery Middle School. Today, we learn basic knife skills and use them to prepare Wisconsin-grown dark leafy greens that you can use in your salad bars and other recipes for your school meal program. Let's start with our green. We'll be using romaine, green curly kale, spinach, and chard. All of these leafy green vegetables credit for the dark green vegetable subgroup. Sliced leafy greens can be a staple for your school salad bar. If you don't have a salad bar, no problem. A finished salad like the one we'll make can be a vegetable side or easily packed in a clamshell for grab-and-go lunches. You can also easily incorporate chopped greens, especially kale, chard, and spinach, into cold grain salads or even soups or baked dishes like lasagna. When incorporated into these dishes, romaine, chard, spinach, and kale may contribute to the dark green vegetable subgroup in a fun and innovative way. We'll begin as always with clean, washed hands. Dirty hands can transfer bacteria to our food. Wash romaine by removing the outer damaged leaves and rinsing thoroughly under cool running water. Consider removing the root end of the vegetable and then rinse under cool running water while separating the leaves. When possible, use a clean and sanitized commercial salad spinner to dry all leaves. If not available, allow to dry in a colander and hold in a cooler at less than 41 degrees Fahrenheit. You can prepare greens 2 to 3 days ahead by using this process. We'll talk more about this later. Let's talk some about knife skills. We have all been using knives throughout our cooking lives. Did you know there are professional techniques to make our knife work easier? It all starts with the right knife for the job. Knives are sized for blade length, and selecting the appropriate size will make your work much easier. Most of our work will be done with a common chef's knife, designed to allow you to easily chop against your cutting surface. To start, always use a cutting board. Do not cut against a metal surface or a tabletop. This will dull your knife. Place a damp towel underneath to prevent the cutting board from slipping on your stainless steel surfaces. Always use a well-sharpened knife. Sharp knives require less pressure and are less likely to slip. They cut more cleanly and evenly too. Hold the knife by pinching the wide end of the blade between your thumb and index finger, wrapping your other fingers around the handle. Use a slightly firm, not tight grip on the knife. This will help you cut accurately and will keep your hand from getting tired. The product to be cut should be placed always with the flat side down. The hand holding the product should be loosely clawed. This way, if the knife does slip, it will glance off your fingers instead of cutting them. Always cut away from yourself as you slice and chop. Our recipe for today is Good and Green Kale Salad. Now, to help us prepare our different greens, let's welcome Therese Allen, local food author and chef, and my kitchen friend.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
It's great to see you again.
So let's start with our freshly washed spinach.
All right. I like to do it like this. I just cut off most of what the stem is here, but then there's little bits of stem that are left, and those are sweet and juicy and delicious. And then you can just roll them into kind of a stack like this. How big do you want them, Susan?
Well, it would depend on the age of the child that you're serving. So younger children in grades K-5, you might want smaller pieces, but this would be for high school, so we would go with adult sizing.
How's that look?
Looks great. These are ready to be placed directly in a serving container, to go out on a salad bar, or to be mixed in a mixed green salad. We could also add them to soup.
Oh yeah, the spinach would go right in there and kind of melt and get cooked really fast and delicious.
I generally add fresh spinach to soup after it is removed from the heat, so that the spinach simply wilts and all of the great nutrition is retained. Wonderful color. For romaine, we'll place one head on the cutting board. We'll remove any outer leaves that are damaged. We'll cut the head in half, and removing the core, you can see that Therese is pulling them into a line, holding them together, and simply chopping through in the size that she wants in her salad dish. These greens are now ready for the salad bar, for mix in a mixed green salad, or to be held for no longer than 1 to 2 days in your cooler. So now we're going to look at the leafy green kale, and you will notice that we have 2 varieties. We will de-stem the kale.
Should I start with the curly kale?
Sure. Remove the kale stem, which has a tendency to be bitter, and then roll it into a bunch. And using the knife techniques that we discussed earlier, simply chop it into edible pieces. And there you have it. And the same for the second variety.
This is the lacinato. Just going to take that one stem out there.
These kale varieties taste very similar. They have a somewhat different texture. And then look at that wonderful color that'll be going into your salad mix. Then on to chard. We have some beautiful chard today. You'll note the color, the yellow and the red stems.
Is this the stuff they call rainbow chard?
It is rainbow chard, and it is a completely edible plant. So Therese will simply take off the stem ends, making sure that we get all of the dehydrated part removed, and then she's going to chop those, and they're going to add color and additional nutrition to our salad mix.
Do you want these pretty small, Susan?
Yes, I think so. Swiss chard stems are sweeter and milder in flavor, and because of that, much more acceptable to children than the kale stem.
Now I'm going to roll and slice the leaves.
Yes, looks beautiful.
Small ones or big ones?
I think whatever you think will blend in our salad. And you can see the color that this will add to your leafy greens. So let's just add that to this beautiful bowl of Wisconsin greens.
Wow.
Good enough to eat.
Wow. Beautiful.
When greens are cut, their storage life is much shorter. To best store unused leafy greens, meaning whole leaves, you can place wash leaves or heads in a plastic container. These are stored in the cooler for up to 3 days. Be careful not to blend different types of leafy greens as their flavors transfer during the storage process. Isolate your kale and chard products to preserve their spicy flavors for last-minute additions to your salad. Now, on to our delicious salad. The recipe calls only for kale, but we've gotten creative and we're going to use our wonderful salad blend. We'll start the dressing. So combine lemon juice, salt and pepper, and mix thoroughly to blend.
Are we doing honey in this one?
I think so.
All right, a little honey for sweetness.
We'll mix this all together to blend the flavors.
You know what I do sometimes? If I want it to get to be a really thick dressing, I add a little mustard right now too.
An innovative idea for your future use. Now, Therese will blend in the vegetable oil, whisking to make sure that the emulsion forms and we have a thoroughly mixed dressing.
I'm just adding a little tiny bit at a time, and then as it starts to thicken up, I can add more, because that means that the emulsion's happening.
Freshly made dressings are my favorite. Inexpensive and wonderful flavors for your salad. So the dressing is complete, and Therese is going to pour the dressing over the salad, and then with gloved hands, we're going to mix the salad. We'll only add more dressing as needed. This will prevent the salad from getting soggy. Then we are going to add 2 cups of chopped Wisconsin apples. They've been tossed with about 2 teaspoons of lemon juice just to prevent browning. Now, we have a beautiful salad ready for your salad bar or service to your students in your lunch line. You could get innovative and include even more Wisconsin-grown products. How about dried cranberries to top it off?
Wisconsin's farmers are an important part of the state's landscape, food system, and economy. By using locally grown fruits and vegetables, you're not only sourcing the freshest ingredients possible, but you're helping to directly support Wisconsin's farm families and businesses across the state. Now, let's meet a farmer and learn about a successful relationship with one of your school nutrition peers.
Our first product from Leisure Gardens, I believe, was tomatoes.
So, yeah, it was within the first year we were selling tomatoes, watermelon, and carrots. It just kind of blew up from there.
If I had to recommend anything, start small with all that and pick one product, try that out and go from there. That's how Farm to School started for us.
Hydroponics is soilless culture. The plants get everything they absolutely need. They have the best growing environment possible. So they're going to set the highest quality, most uniform, best tasting fruit that you can get.
One of the products we really like working with is the hydroponic lettuce and spinach, because it's not grown in soil. We're not dealing with dirt. So once our staff gets it, they can wash it, they tear it up, it's ready to serve. Hydroponics is a huge advantage for schools because we live in Wisconsin and the growing season is basically when the kids aren't in school.
Our season is greatly extended. In our area, Deep Erie, Wisconsin, we can get tomatoes from May, usually through December-ish, somewhere around there. I usually have fruit until about the first of the year.
The lettuce was a huge asset in the spring. You know, at the time of year when most people are working with real limp, bland-looking lettuce, we had great, colorful lettuce that we were serving on our lunch lines, and the kids just loved it.
We get kids coming to the farmers markets with their parents now, and their parents tell us, "Oh, we never used to come to farmers markets," and then the kids tell them about coming out here or getting stuff on their school line, and now they go to the farmers market and buy their produce there. And it's almost like they didn't know that farmers markets were a thing until their kids are telling them about it. So they're definitely bringing the message home. It's a pretty cool thing to have a parent, you know, tell you that their whole lifestyle, their eating lifestyle has changed because of things that their kids are getting at school and what they're learning.
Today we are going to learn about the use of whole grains in product preparation. Using these easy techniques will help you incorporate more whole grain recipes into your menu. Delicious, healthful whole grains can be served as side dishes or breakfast cereals, but some students may be somewhat unfamiliar. A great way to get students to go for whole grains is to incorporate them into foods that students always love, like pizza and muffins. Today we'll be doing 2 demonstrations. First, we'll be making whole wheat pizza dough, which will feature whole grains in a yeast-based product. For the second demonstration, we'll be making blueberry oat muffins, a quick bread product that yields good nutrition and great flavor in a form that students really go for. Exactly what are whole grains and why are they important? Whole grains are the intact seeds or kernels of the plant, and unlike refined grains, they contain the bran, germ, and endosperm. Processing removes the bran and germ in refined grains, leaving only the endosperm. Since whole grains contain all 3 parts of the kernel, they retain a variety of excellent nutrients. Some examples of whole grains include whole wheat, oats, whole grain cornmeal, brown rice, wild rice, whole grain barley, and quinoa. Consuming whole grains as part of a healthy diet has been shown to reduce the risk of obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and several types of cancer. The nutrition standards for the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs require that all grains offered must be whole grain rich. Whole grain rich products must contain at least 50% whole grains. It's easier than you think to incorporate whole grains into your menu. In many recipes, you can simply substitute whole grains for refined. For example, you can substitute whole wheat flour in foods like pancakes, muffins, breads, and all other flour-based recipes. Keep in mind though, it's often better to replace some, not all, of the refined flour with whole grains. Replacing white flour with whole grain flour in a 1-to-1 ratio will make a denser or heavier product than the original recipe. There are many school-focused recipes available online that you can use, or you can try out your own recipes. Just remember that it'll take some experimentation to determine a ratio that produces a desirable taste and texture for students. You may need to adjust the amount of liquid, leavening, and fat used in your recipe. We'll be demonstrating 2 approaches to whole wheat baking products. Let's begin with the whole wheat pizza dough. The whole wheat pizza dough we're making uses a mix of white and whole wheat flour. By using more whole wheat flour than white flour in the mix, we'll produce a product that is at least 50% whole grain rich. First, we'll activate our yeast. Proper yeast activation is the most important step to ensure a high quality yeast bread. The best technique for dissolving and activating your yeast is to use a thermometer to measure the water, making sure that it is between 100 and 115 degrees. We'll add a small amount of honey to give the yeast something to grow with, and then we'll add our active, dry, granulated yeast. We'll mix well, and when all the yeast is dissolved, we'll set it aside. We'll wait 15 to 20 minutes and the mixture will begin to bubble. This is a good sign that you'll have a quality base to begin your yeast bread. While the dry yeast is being activated in the warm water honey mixture, I'm going to mix the 2 flours together. Mixing these dry ingredients together first will ensure an even distribution as we go through the process. So I'm blending this slowly by hand. This could also be done in your commercial mixer. In the stand mixer, we have our activated yeast mixture ready to go. We're going to turn the mixer on and slowly add the dry mixture. When the blending is complete and all flour is incorporated into the liquid, we'll use the dough hook on this commercial mixer to mechanically knead the dough. Kneading dough takes approximately 10 minutes until it comes together in a soft ball but is not too sticky. Be careful not to over-knead the dough, as this produces a dry and tough end product. If you plan on freezing your dough for later use, remove it from the mixer bowl by scraping it out with a bench scraper onto a lightly floured surface. We'll divide the dough into 2 single pizza crust portions. Each pizza crust portion provides about 20 student servings. Now dust each portion lightly with flour and tightly wrap with commercial film, ensuring the product is completely covered. Store in a container or a plastic freezer bag for up to 6 months. As in all frozen storage, the products must be protected from air to prevent freezer burn. Using the frozen dough could not be easier. Transfer the number of dough portions that you need from the freezer, remove any packaging, place on a sheet pan, and again cover very carefully with commercial film to seal out air, but allow enough space for the dough to expand as it thaws. We would thaw at least 24 hours in the cooler before we plan on using. When you are ready to begin pizza preparation, bring the dough out of the refrigerator to the countertop. Let it rest before stretching. It is ready when you can press your finger into the dough and it leaves an imprint. Depending on the temperature of your kitchen, this can take up to 2 hours. Now, using oiled hands, shape the dough into a flat disc. And then begin to stretch from the center out, pushing the dough. A rolling pin will make this oval larger. The rectangles should be large enough to fit 1 full sheet pan, which is 18 by 26 inches. If the dough seems resistant to stretching, let it rest 5 to 10 minutes and try again. Coat 1 full sheet pan with cooking spray. Then sprinkle lightly with about 1/4 cup of whole cornmeal. Now we can lift the dough and place it in the pan. You may have to reshape slightly after you do this. The rectangles should be large enough to fit 1 full sheet pan. Now you have a basic whole grain dough that can be used in many ways. You can use it for stromboli or calzones. You could top the dough with some oil and garlic to make a homemade breadstick, or top it with mozzarella cheese for that all-time student favorite, cheese sticks. Today we are going to use it to make a delicious pizza by topping it with the vegetable ratatouille we made in our Chop Chop video on tomatoes and peppers. If you don't want to make your own sauce, any ready-to-use sauce will work. We'll just spread our sauce out evenly. And we'll add some shredded cheese. It's important to remember that these bread products need a hot, dry heat for best results. Therefore, you'll want to bake the pizza at 450 degrees until the crust is light brown and the cheese is bubbly, usually about 15 to 18 minutes. And here we have our completed school pizza. Doesn't it look wonderful? Let's move on to the recipe for blueberry oat muffins. We'll mix white whole wheat flour with oats to create a whole grain rich product. The heartier taste and texture of whole wheat flour and oats compared to white flour and instant oatmeal may be unfamiliar to students, but by mixing the grains, you can produce a taste and texture that will be more delicious and acceptable to students. Muffins are very popular with students. They're quick to prepare and they require only simple preparation techniques. You can make muffins with ingredients commonly found in most kitchens. Our recipe is especially cost-effective as it uses several foods that are available through the USDA Foods Program. Additionally, our recipe uses white whole wheat flour. This type of flour is a good replacement for all-purpose flour as it retains the health benefits of whole wheat but yields a texture and flavor more similar to white flour. Muffins are in a category of baked goods called quick breads. While the quick bread technique is simple, there are a few important rules. First, you must mix the dry and the wet ingredients separately. This ensures that the ingredients will be evenly distributed and will yield consistent texture and flavor. Combine dry ingredients well so that the baking powder and baking soda, these are the leavening agents, are well distributed, ensuring your muffins will rise evenly and be flaky and tender. Second, when you combine the wet and dry ingredients, take care not to over or under mix. Over mixing will result in tough and dry products, while under mixing results in inconsistent batches. Add the dry ingredients to the wet and mix only until all ingredients are moistened. Always incorporate the blueberries by hand with the spatula. This allows the fruit to remain mostly whole within the finished muffin. Here we have a standard muffin pan. We're going to spray the pan well with standard cooking spray. Then I'm going to portion the muffin batter using a number 20 scoop. These will bake in a preheated oven at 375 for about 16 to 20 minutes. Let the muffins cool for about 10 minutes on the cooling rack. Then tap them out onto a clean kitchen towel to finish the cooling process. If a larger muffin is desired, you could use a number 12 or a number 16 scoop, but they will take somewhat longer to bake. The batter could also be baked in a sheet pan and cut into squares. While muffins are best if made fresh for service, that just may not always be possible. These muffins may be made in advance and fully cooled. then placed in a Cambro container with sheet liners between the layers. You may freeze for up to 3 months, and when ready to use, thaw overnight in your refrigerator. Keep in mind that you could modify the recipe and incorporate other Wisconsin-grown products like these cranberries. This muffin is very versatile and can be used in your breakfast program and served as a grain-based side in your school lunch. It credits for 1 grain bread in the school meal pattern. Additionally, it also meets Smart Snack guidelines for a side. Keep in mind, if you adjust the serving size, it may no longer meet the Smart Snack guidelines. Thank you for joining us to learn about whole grains. We think you'll enjoy incorporating more whole grain recipes into your school meals. And we know your students will enjoy eating the tasty, wholesome treats you create. I hope you've enjoyed learning more about using local Wisconsin products in your school menus.
Have fun introducing these delicious whole grains and Wisconsin fruits and vegetables into your school meal program. The complete video training series and other Farm to School resources are available on the CIAS website. Thank you again to our sponsors at USDA, Team Nutrition, Organic Valley, and NutriSlice, who made these videos possible.
The Chop Chop Training Series is a partnership of CESA Purchasing, the Center for Integrated Agricultural Systems, and the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction.